Hello fellow plastic throwers, this is Fulcrum, and in today's Airsoft review we're going to be taking a look at my custom CYMA CM030 Airsoft AEP machine pistol. The externals of this handgun are mostly polymer, so unlike the Glock 18 WE gas blowback we reviewed a while back, this does feel quite toy-like. It's weathered in some places as you would expect, and a few scratches here and there, but there's no damage to it. There's no obvious cracks or fissures forming or holes or gouges taken out of it. It seems to be holding up alright. Your magazine release is your typical Glock magazine release, so you just push it in and the mag drops out like so. The trigger is a basic curved trigger and it's a plastic trigger, and on the right side of the gun you also have a little safety as well. And of course, being a Glock 18C, you have a selector switch on the back. Upwards is semi-automatic and downwards is full auto. Now the stock iron sights on this gun are your typical Glock iron sights. On top of this handgun, however, I've got a CYMA rail system. This gives me a top rail for optics and also a suppressor thread. And near the muzzle end of the gun, on the bottom, you have a weaver rail, and what I've done is I've modified a little grip. I've cut some plastic off of it so I can mount it onto the weaver rail like so. Now since this is an AEP, there is no slide movement. However, if you push the back of the slide in here, you can remove the slide to access the internals of the gun. Underneath the slide you have the hop wheel, which allows you to adjust your hop up. And the hop units in these guns, they're not the best. However, what I've done with this gun is I've got a Sugru R hop in it, and it's not completely set right. I basically have to use 4.5s to not get any overhop at all, and maximum range right now 50 meters, let's say. And considering this only does about 200 FPS, that's not bad, but using a 4.5 it takes forever to get up there, so I want to file that down at some point just to get that under control. And also on the stock gun you'd have a battery holder in here as well, which is where you'd put the 7.2 volt NimH battery pack that this gun comes with. However, to give me a bit more freedom with the batteries I want to use, I've externally wired this with a Dean's connector. The magazines I run are some CYMA AEP low caps. These hold 30 rounds, and I used to have one of the 100 round extended mags. However, I just found it wasn't reliable. It would more often than not empty itself in your pouch, in your tactical gear, and if you slightly bumped the side of the mag well as the mag's going in, it would just empty itself. These, however, I've had no problem whatsoever. They're also really well made. They're just a big billet of metal. I mean, granted it's probably zinc, but it's incredibly solid, and I've never broken one of these, and they feed really well. The only complaint I have is it doesn't really look like a realistic magazine, but it does the job, so I can't really complain that much. As you can see right now, I've got it with the front grip on, so it's almost, I would say it's almost like an MP5K, a nice little submachine gun slash machine pistol. I'm hoping to use this as my secondary at Thetford. I'm going to be using the M14 as my main weapon, but I wanted something which would have a bit more firepower than my 1911, but wouldn't weigh as much as my MP5, which was my original choice for a secondary. Now this probably won't shoot as far as my 1911, nor will it hit as hard because it's got the lower velocity. However, I have the benefit of a fully automatic mode, and this thing doesn't weigh anything at all. It's so lightweight. And according to the scales, this gun weighs 0.7 kilograms, which is 1.4 pounds. So it doesn't weigh that much at all really because of the polymer build. However, you do have the weight of the gearbox inside it. Not only that, I don't know what the weather's going to be like this weekend, and since it's November, it's going to get cold and damp and all that, which means gas guns are going to start playing up. This being an AEP though, it will work all the damn time. For the chrono test, we've got some Spectre Arms .25s, and we're running it off a bit of a bloated 7.4 volt LiPo. It's alright, it probably just needs a bit of a charge. I mean, they naturally do that anyway. And we're going to fire 5 shots. Do one more. Oh. Now the first 2 shots were quite high for an AEP. I reckon there's just some .2s in that bag of 2.5s, which is really annoying. And the rest of them 195, 194, 195, so it's quite consistent. And 195 on 2.5s would be around about, probably getting on towards 240, 250 FPS, which for an AEP is not bad, but I have done a few modifications inside, which I'll explain in a minute. And whilst we're at it, we'll give it a burst of full auto. I didn't read, but we're getting 192, 194, 190, 189. So it's still relatively consistent. Now performance wise with this gun, as we saw on .25s, 195, 196, that sort of FPS, that's going to be around about 230 FPS on .2s, which isn't too bad for an AEP. One thing I did do that I found worked really well is if you epoxy the cylinder head into the cylinder and get a really good seal, then that's a really good way of increasing the velocity. You can get a good 20-30 FPS out of it if you do it right. However, we had some Sugru left over, so we decided to Sugru R-hop this gun, and that seems to work quite well. The only problem is right now it really needs a bit more Sugru taken off because it's got a significant amount of overhop, and you have to use 3.6s, and even then they overhop. You have to use you know, you have to use really heavyweight rounds. Anything larger than a 3.6 is basically unusable, and even with 3.6s, it's got quite a lot of climb to it. But, you know, the range on this, let's say maximum range 50 meters, but with heavyweight rounds, it just takes forever to get there. You know, you could almost walk at that pace. It takes forever to reach the target. So I want to get 2.5s running in this because that will give me the best velocity. And yeah, you know, I don't think there's any real need to use heavyweight rounds in this. I want to get the Sugru sorted out, just need to file it down some more. They're quite fiddly, but when you get them right, they're absolutely awesome in my experience. And as you saw with the fire rate, it's nothing really too impressive. It's probably about 600 rounds a minute right now. To be fair, I have used this gun as a guinea pig, and at one point I ran it on two 7.4 volt batteries in series, and it fired, as you can imagine, quite quickly, but I don't think the motor enjoyed it, and it's partially cooked the motor. So probably best not to do that, but it still works alright. It will still shoot a BB downrange, and it still cycles alright, it's just a bit sluggish. Now when it comes to reliability, I find that these CYMA CM030 machine pistols are absolutely bulletproof. I have broken one, but that's because I did something wrong whilst teching. I can't remember what it was, but out of the box it was perfectly fine. I just messed about with it a bit too much, and I think I misaligned something. I can't remember what I broke. I think it might have been the tappet plate I broke, but you know, it wasn't from everyday use of the gun. I hadn't looked after it that well. But this one here, it's been dropped numerous times. I've ran it on, you know, 16 odd volts off of two LiPo batteries. You know, you can't just stick a LiPo on a gun stock as it is. So to do that, you know, that's just ridiculous. And it's still working really well. The magazines are very reliable. I've not had any feeding problems. The only complaint I have is the hop unit and the low power. The low power, that's just an inherent problem when you're stuffing a tiny little gearbox into a 1:1 scale pistol. And the hop unit, well, maybe they could try to make a TDC hop unit. Sugru hopping it seems to have worked, but I've still got a few things to iron out before it's perfect. And of course, since this pistol's electric, you do not have to worry about cooldown, light striking, the weather affecting it, because it's not a gas gun. As we all know, gas guns, you know, if it's a bit cold and a bit damp, a bit of wind, you know, it can cause all sorts of problems. I'm not saying gas guns are terrible, they're brilliant, they're good fun, but if it's pissing it down with rain, or it's freezing cold and there's snow or whatever, and you're in a blizzard, or if you're in Siberia for some reason, this will work. This will get the job done. This will work all through the year. You don't have to worry about it being too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. It will do it, and it will work fine. The other thing as well, though, is these AEPs are not expensive at all. You know, 60, 70 quid. And you can also buy a MOSFET version with a LiPo battery, which you can recharge with a USB charger, and they're like 80 quid. You know, and that's alright, that's really good, because you can then buy like a micro Ronnie carbine kit or whatever carbine kit you want, and you can fit that in it. In fact, this one will fit in that Armorworks carbine kit we reviewed a while back. When it comes to sourcing aftermarket parts for this pistol, it's not too bad. For example, Eagle 6 sell loads of little bits, and you can find some gel blaster, whatever they're called, water blaster, you know what the Australians have to use, the poor sods. That you can buy the motors for those, and they will fit in this as well. So people have put really, really hot motors in these, and you know, got 30 rounds a second out of them. I haven't done that just yet, but you know, it's not too bad. They're quite easy to work on as well. They're not as fiddly as what you think. So if you want an airsoft handgun which will work all year round, no matter the weather, and if you want something that is, in my experience, absolutely indestructible, then I recommend you get yourself a CYMA 030 AEP. Put it this way, if you've managed to destroy one of these, I'd love to hear about it. So that's it for this review. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it or found it useful at any point, then make sure you leave a like. And if you don't want to miss out on any new airsoft content, then make sure you subscribe and enable notifications. So right now, we are so close to breaking 300 subscribers, and I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for all of the continued support. I do apologise for the video's been a bit naff recently, like there's not been any gameplay for ages. I've been so incredibly busy, I haven't had the time for it, but things are starting to quieten down a bit, so hopefully we'll be able to get up to some airsoft field soon. And as always guys, play fair, play safe. Take care.